You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to N2K Cyberwire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, the phishing schemes, and criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Dave Bittner, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan. Hey, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
And our N2K colleague and host of the T-Minus Space Daily podcast, Maria Vermazis. Maria.
Hi, I'm back.
Welcome back. We've got some good stories to share this week, but first, a message from our show sponsor. But first, a word from our sponsors at KnowBe4. We're not talking conspiracy theory when we say it's all connected. When it comes to InfoSec tools, effective integrations can make or break your security stack. Though not as common, the same should be true for security awareness training. Not only does KnowBe4 deliver the world's largest library of security awareness training, but they also provide a way to integrate the various elements of your existing security stack to help you strengthen your organization's security culture. Stay with us, and in a few minutes, we'll hear from our sponsors at KnowBe4 about how you can integrate security awareness with your tech stack like never before. All right, we don't have any follow-up this week, so we're going to jump right into our stories. Maria, why don't you kick things off for us here?
Sure. So we got some really intriguing mail from our listeners, and one piece that caught my eye was from our listener, Sarah. She wrote us this. I believe my home is somehow being used in a scam. I first noticed this when I received 2 pieces of junk mail to my home for an LLC I did not recognize. I searched the Colorado Secretary of State's business search and saw that, yes, an LLC was registered using my home address. I did not know the LLC, the registrant, or the principal address in Brooklyn, New York. Conducting an internet search for the Brooklyn address, I see it's been used to register several businesses here in Colorado, all using residences and of varying value. I reported this to the Colorado Secretary of State, little information there. My county records, they don't care. And my local police, also no interest. Somebody at work suggested I report this to the FBI's Internet Crime Center, which I did, but have not had any follow-up. I am at a loss as to what the goal of this scam is. My fear is it will lead to debt tied to my property, but I have no idea. I would love y'all's brain trust mulling this over, smiley face. And Sarah very helpfully linked to a story from local news, 9 News Colorado, about this very phenomenon. This actually, they just did a story on this about a week or 2 ago. The headline was, Colorado Secretary of State gets hundreds of complaints about fake LLCs. The investigation into what's happening can take months. And I'll give you sort of the TLDR on this. It follows a person named Kristen Speth, who called the news station when she got mail to her home, similar story as Sarah's, for an LLC that was not hers. And the registered agent, which is sort of like the proxy service that people can use to make an LLC,
right?
The registered agent for that phony LLC had recently registered about a dozen other LLCs around Colorado to other residences. And the local news did a little gumshoe work, and they called all those addresses, and everybody they reached confirmed that they also got LLC mail for LLCs that were not theirs either.
Let me guess what they got. They got big, thick Uline catalogs.
Yeah, you will get those when you have an LLC.
As soon as you start an LLC, you start getting Uline catalogs.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you get a lot of junk mail. Although you do get, I presume, some official mail at some point too, and that's I think probably what raised some antennae. But who knows, really? And 9 News Colorado reached out to the Colorado Secretary of State, as this is their department. And spokesperson Jack Todd said, an investigation typically takes up to 6 months, but there is a backlog. Since February 2023, over 2,000 cases have been filed with them, and only 700 have been resolved as of this August. And when asked what the end goal of this scam is, Todd said, and I quote, a fraudulent business could try and pick up a line of credit. They could do things associated with the address and then not pay, that kind of thing. That is
Well, that settles it.
That kind of thing.
Have liens placed against our residents' houses.
Minor stuff like that, right?
Right.
Yeah. I went down the rabbit hole in this one a little bit as much as I could. I couldn't find a very satisfying answer to this one either, to be honest. Aside from they use it for fraud. What kind of fraud? I don't know. Money laundering, shrug. I mean, so thoughts, gentlemen. What do you think?
Those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what your culpability is here. The problem is that if this does lead to somebody saying, I'm going to put a lien on your house, you're going to have to fight that. Which means you're going to have to lawyer up and go to court. And that's not going to be free. That's going to cost you money.
Yeah.
So
can they do that, though, with just an LLC? That's the thing I don't understand. Is that possible?
They can try anything, right? They can, somebody says, hey, you register, somebody is at your address. That's a good question. Like if you actually have a legitimate business, the gentleman's legitimate business concern. If you have a legitimate business and
LLC.
you're renting a property, they're not going to file. They're not going to be able to file a lien against your land. The building owner for your business failing. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe not. Maybe this isn't a real thing. It's a real concern. Unless they're also saying, I own the home and I'm happy to put it up as collateral. But then you have to go through processes. Because I've done
ID checks, I would assume.
Yeah, ID checks.
Yeah, I don't think this is. Yeah, I would imagine there's some kind of check and balances in this. I don't know.
Right.
It can't be that easy, can it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unusual for folks when they get to settlement to sell their house to find that there's some kind of lien that's been put on it without them knowing, or it's just. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens. I can't say all the time, but from time to time, and you make your way through it. You figure it out, and if it's not, if it wasn't yours, when it comes time to sell a house, which is when these things usually pop up, everyone is highly motivated to see all of these things through, right? So everybody's going to be in your corner. The title company who have attorneys, generally they try to expedite anything like that happening. But I guess the question I have here, and I can posit an answer, is why Colorado? Why are they choosing Colorado? Yeah. But I wonder if the answer is 2,000 cases filed, only 700 resolved.
Right.
So somebody's figured out
I would imagine that's part of it.
Colorado is backlogged. So if we do something like this, gentlemen, we have a year to do whatever it is we're going to do to get in and out before anybody has any chance of shutting us down.
And it's easier in some states than others. Delaware, famously, super easy to start an LLC. Other states, it's much harder. Certain states have ID requirements, others don't. There is a new federal law that went into effect at the beginning of this year where you have to provide, it's BOI, business ownership information, I think, where you have to say who actually is behind your LLC, but not everybody has to comply with that just yet. And I'm sure there's ways around that one too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, some states it's much easier to kind of skirt around who's actually in your LLC, and the barrier is so low that Colorado's trying to ramp theirs up. It sounds like there's a bunch of state laws in the works where they're trying to make it harder to start an LLC, but for folks that have already got their foot in the door, I imagine they're taking advantage. So yeah. One thing that I was thinking, because I used to have an LLC and I registered mine in Massachusetts because that's where I live, and it was it was much harder to register in Massachusetts. And anyway, but Schedule C fraud is a big deal, and I could just imagine someone who figures if they could just run out the clock with the IRS or try to do fraudulent write-offs with an fraudulent LLC and just hope the IRS takes their sweet time to notice, and maybe in that time you skedaddle or something. It might just be worth the risk for them. But, it just, I don't know. If that's really the end goal here, I mean, I guess that scales this much that there are this many fake LLCs. I suppose so.
It could be something as simple as tax fraud. That they're starting an LLC and they're saying that they're spending money on that and they're losing money on it, and they have books that show it, and then they deduct money that they never spent from their income.
Yeah. I would imagine for our listener, Sarah, that it is to her benefit that she's created this paper trail of trying to search out what this is and contacting, Colorado's Secretary of State and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So if it becomes a problem, she can say, I've been trying to resolve this.
But your car's extended warranty. No, I'm kidding.
Right,
Yeah,
right, exactly.
yeah, definitely. Your state's Secretary of State is the authority to report this to. So if you get this, I would definitely report it. Don't expect an answer anytime soon, but at least get the paper trail going. But I've seen some, again, I was trying to figure this one out because I could not find a lot of good information on it. I've seen some people who've encountered this who suggest just doing a return to sender on any mail that you get to sort of try and help your case. Don't open anything, obviously. I don't know if that would actually help. Probably can't hurt. But yeah, the Secretary of State is the authority to, I don't know if your local police would ever care about something like this, but
Yeah.
you never know. Get that paper trail going. But Sarah, I wish you luck. And if there's a follow-up, please let us know.
Yeah.
By the way, just yesterday, my wife took a couple of letters to the post office that had come to our address that were properly addressed to our address, but had a name on it that we did not recognize. And it was mail from a couple different places, but one of them that caught our eye, it was like Wells Fargo, like a bank or a mortgage, something like that, came to our house. They were both addressed to the same person who does not live in our house, has never lived in our house. The house my wife and I live in has been in our family since 1980. So
Right.
there's only one name that's ever been on that house since it was built. But, she went to the post office and said, what should I do about this? And they said, just write return to sender. This person does not live here and we will take care of the rest. So.
Well, there you go. Well, if
Yeah.
the post office says so, then that's what you should do.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, that's interesting. And to our listeners, if you have any clues here as to what exactly is going on, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is hackinghumans@n2k.com. All right, Joe, you are up next here. What do you got to share with us?
Dave, my story comes from the BBC's Global China Unit. And the title of it is China Scam Run from the Isle of Man. Do you know where the Isle of Man is?
I know where the Isle of Lucy is.
That is such
terrible.
That is awful. So the Isle of Man is a small.
Let that one marinate for a second.
The Isle of Man is actually one of the richest countries in the world. Technically, it is a self-governing British Crown dependency.
Okay.
It sits right between, I guess it would be England and Ireland, in the Irish Sea, closer to England. There, you can actually take ferries from either Dublin or from Liverpool to get to the Isle of Man.
Okay.
In their capital city, Douglas, or as locals call it, Doug. It is a small island, only 222 square miles of island. And to put that in terms an American can understand, Rhode Island, our smallest state, is many times bigger.
Okay.
Like 5 times bigger. And depending whether or not you count water. There are fewer than 85,000 people that live on the Isle of Man as of 2022. And its tax laws are pretty lax, right? As are most of its financial laws. In fact, if you look at Wikipedia's page, it says they are not 100% compliant with all of the money laundering regulations in the EU, which is, I guess, kind of good for them that Brexit happened because they're now I guess they're not subject to it. But the Chinese government is saying that from January of 2022 and until the very next year, there was a pig butchering scam being run on the island. And the BBC has done a lot of digging on this. And this story kind of jumps all over the place. But there was this hotel in Douglas where all of a sudden in 2021, about 100 people showed up on the Isle of Man at this hotel to work at a company called MIC, which was later identified by the BBC to stand for Manx Internet Commerce. Now, Manx is the term, like the ethnic term for people from the Isle of Man.
Oh, okay.
It's also the cat.
Okay, all right.
So if you're familiar with the Manx cat,
No.
which is that's the cat that doesn't have a tail.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And
Learning a lot today, Joe. Love
yes.
this. Okay.
And they are the product of a small population of cats living on 222 square miles in the Irish Sea.
Yeah.
inbreeding for centuries.
They live in the sea?
No, they live on the island in the sea.
Right.
Oh,
They're
There's a cat.
aquatic
There's a cat.
cats.
There's a cat on the island in the sea.
man, you just blew my mind. Okay.
they have webbed beams.
Little mercats. My daughter's going to be thrilled.
Right.
Webbed toe beans. I think every cat has webbed toe beans, don't they?
Probably.
I know my cats do. I love my cats. Anyway, this company, these about 100 people showed up. They came out of the Philippines and they showed up at this hotel. And there were so many Chinese nationals working here that this hotel actually went out and got something called a wok hob, which is a wok burner for making food in authentic Chinese style.
Oh, I see.
So it's
A hob for a wok.
a
Okay,
hob
gotcha.
for a wok,
Okay.
right? And I don't
Gotcha,
know how you
okay.
spell or pronounce hob. It's in here HOB, but
Yeah.
I know
the hob.
wok is pronounced wok. Anyway,
Hob's an English word. It's like the burner. It's another word for like a burner.
so
Okay.
these guys were running their business out of the Seaview Hotel in Douglas, and then eventually they moved to an old bank building. And the BBC caught up with this guy named Jordan. They're calling him Jordan. His name actually isn't Jordan, so don't go looking for him. He said he had no idea what was going on, but he did think that something funny was happening. But he said he was just happy that he had a stable administrative job. He noticed that the new employees, the people that showed up, were quite secretive, and he and his colleagues were forbidden from taking photos at any of the company's social events. And he didn't. He says it says he didn't realize that many of his Chinese colleagues were actually scam artists. So
Okay.
here's how their scam worked. They were getting on this chat application called QQ, which immediately takes me back to Roscoe P. Coltrane. QQ. From my childhood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I watched. This show was so awful. But it was. It's essentially a Chinese instant messaging service similar to WhatsApp. Now, I don't know if it's end-to-end encrypted like WhatsApp claims to be, but it is. Let's just call it Chinese WhatsApp, called
Okay.
QQ. So they would have 4 of these scammers working on one person, and one of these scammers would pretend to be the teacher, the investment teacher, and the other 3 scammers would pretend to be students. And then they try to get a 4th person in who is the victim, right? And then they would start talking about it, and one of them would say, "All right, I'm going to take a chance on this," and they would start, and they would show off their winnings. Look how great this is. Look how great this is. And then they would do the typical thing with the pig butchering scam, where they got people to invest money, probably in the form of cryptocurrencies. And then after they were convinced they had enough, they would just shut everything down and disappear and take the money. That's how it worked.
Okay.
So the BBC is reporting that China has arrested and gotten 6 people to confess to these crimes in the Isle of Man. They said that the MIC was, the BBC discovered that it was set up by an individual named Bill Morgan, who documents also point to as a guy named Liang Lingfei. And according to Jordan, people called him Boss Liang. So Liang there's a great passport in here, a Dominican passport, that says that Bill Morgan is from the Dominican Republic. And there's a picture of Liang Lingfei here. So he hasn't been caught at all. He's still free. The company MIC also held a gambling company as well, an online gambling company. So here's my question about this. If you're a guy that's running an online gambling company out of the Isle of Man, which is actually legitimate, right? You could do that anytime you want it, because the Isle of Man actually 17% of their gross domestic product, gross national product, comes from operations like that. It's one of the 2 categories. I can't remember. I was reading it. Sorry. But it's like 17% comes from a large portion of online business, including online gambling. So they're fine with it there. If you're making money in online gambling, why do you run the risk of running a pig butchering scam? And I mean, this must be so lucrative that online
Agreed.
gambling
Yes.
isn't as lucrative as it.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
So
that's
just
agreed.
clarify here for me. So we're talking about presumably a Chinese citizen, let's say, who's the mastermind,
Yes.
has decided to set up shop in the Isle of Man,
Yep.
which is a British subsidiary.
Yeah.
Tax haven. Yes.
Right. But has brought in, let's say, 100 Filipinos.
Well, no, I think these are Chinese people that were in the Philippines. And then he moved them from the Philippines to the Isle of Man.
Gotcha. Okay, that's part I wasn't connecting because I didn't know if what is it common for Filipinos to speak Chinese?
I don't know that it is.
Well, I wouldn't imagine so. So that clarification makes a lot more sense to me. Okay, so he brought people in from the Philippines who were presumably of Chinese descent.
Right.
But still, I mean, bringing 100 people over internationally, setting up shop, providing them with food and drink and housing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
This is not a small operation.
No, all to run a pig butchering scam.
Yeah.
And he was targeting
Wow.
people. He was targeting Chinese people which is why he was using Chinese scammers, so that they were,
Jeez.
so that they were all linguistically acceptable, I guess.
The scale just blows my mind.
Right.
Wow.
But I wonder
goodness.
why choose the Isle of Man versus something closer to home? Was it to stay away from the Chinese long arm of the law?
Maybe what's wrong with the Philippines? They run a lot of scams out of the Philippines, right?
Right.
There are huge scam centers there. I don't know why he was investing. Thinking about having or had signed a planning agreement late last year for something called the Parkland campus, which was a headquarters site he was building on a formal naval training base. And there are pictures of, architectural drawings, the concept drawings of this place. It looks huge.
Yeah.
So, the Isle of Man thought he was going to be investing, and I think he's just kind of disappeared. So
I wonder too, because if you're talking about a community of fewer than 85,000 people,
right,
spread out over a fairly large area for that number of people,
right.
I wonder how insular it is in that someone like him can come along and start greasing palms and just have people look the other way.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Or it doesn't even have to grease palms with the very libertarian, unregulated, almost unregulated financial situation there.
Yeah.
Is that even necessary?
Comes in and says, good news. I'm going to rent your entire hotel.
Right. Okay.
All you got to do is get a special burner for my wok.
Right.
Right. Wow.
My people love authentic Chinese food.
Yeah.
And probably, who knows? You may even brought in a cook.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Interesting. So
Wow.
Where does it stand now? The operation has shut down and he presumably is on the run?
Yes. And they have not caught him yet.
Okay.
The Chinese government is saying that these people people are out millions of dollars.
Oh, wow.
Millions of dollars. And from a relatively small number of people as well.
Okay. So they were targeting people who were
they were targeting
well-to-do.
Yep, people with money.
Interesting. All right. Well, we will have a link to that story in the show notes. Before we get to my story, why don't we take a quick break to hear another message from our show sponsor. Back to the concept of integrations. KnowBe4's Security Coach uses standard APIs to quickly and easily integrate with your existing security products from vendors like Microsoft, CrowdStrike, Cisco, and dozens of others. Security Coach analyzes alerts your security stack generates to identify events related to any risky security behavior from your users. With this information, you can set up real-time coaching campaigns to target risky users based on those events from your network, endpoint, identity, or web security vendors. These campaigns enable you to coach your users at the moment the risky behavior occurs, with contextual security tips delivered via Microsoft Teams, Slack, or email. With 35 integrations and counting, Security Coach delivers the insight you need to improve your organization's security culture. Learn more about Security Coach at knowbe4.com/securitycoach. That's knowbe4.com/securitycoach. right, we are back. I want to talk about a phishing scam that it's one of those things where when you think about it, you go, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm not sure that we've covered it here before. The framing of this is as we just passed kind of the mid-year point, a lot of organizations, the places where folks work, will send out employee surveys to say, how are we doing?
Once again, we are looking at the
Love those
scammers'
surveys.
liturgical calendar.
Right. How,
they have a content calendar, don't they?
What are you happy about? What are you not happy about? How can we make your life as one of our employees better? And this is a legit way for HR to keep an eye on how they're doing and how the company's doing and all that kind of thing. But as always, these folks who are up to no good, these folks are sending out these phishing emails.
These no goodniks, if you will.
They see this as an opportunity to launch phishing attacks. And there was some research done by Cofense, which is a cybersecurity company. They actually have a group within their organization called the Cofense Phishing Defense Center.
Rolls off the tongue.
Cofense Defense, yeah. They have identified a phishing campaign that is disguised as an employee engagement survey, and the purpose of it is to steal Microsoft Office 365 credentials. So you get an email, and it mimics a mid-year engagement survey. It uses a spoof domain. So they're spoofing the domain name of the company that it should come from, that you would expect to get this survey from. So it seems to come from HR. It also applies a little pressure to them saying, we need you to fill this out right away. It's important, please don't hesitate, all that good stuff. And then they get, they're directed to a fake survey site, which asks for all sorts of personal information, like their full name, which interesting detail here. Cofense said that they claim that the survey is anonymous, but then they ask you for your full name.
I was just thinking that, they don't usually ask for that. That should be a giant red flag to somebody. You want to be anonymous. Yeah.
Right. They say the identification page was hosted on Wufoo. Either of you heard of Wufoo? I've never heard of Wufoo. That's a
I've
new
heard
one
of
to
it,
me.
but literally just in passing. Yeah. Wufoo. Yep.
Yeah. So after entering their name, they get redirected to a fake Microsoft login page. And that's kind of the ball game. They take you down this path of building up your confidence by doing the survey, by having the email come from what looks like HR, and then they say, okay, one more step. We're going to need you to log into your Microsoft account so that you can send us this information. And of course, when you do log in, they get your login information. So
did they actually do a real survey? Is there a survey after they get your info?
Well, the survey comes before they ask you to log into Microsoft.
Okay.
So they're building, a pattern of interaction with you, a routine pattern of interaction with you before they take you to the Microsoft page to ask you to log in. So they've lulled you into a sense of security, but also now you've invested all this time.
Right.
And you don't want to have to do it again.
The old sunk cost fallacy.
Right. So this article points out some indicators you should look for. Obviously, suspicious URLs, a request for personal information in an anonymous survey, lack of proper company branding, that kind of thing. And I just want people to be aware that this is out there rather. Like I said, this seems obvious to me, but I can't recall us covering just a typical corporate survey scam like this before. Does this ring a bell to you, Joe?
No,
Yeah.
I've not heard this one before, but it makes sense that this is the time to do it. And, like I've said this many times on this show before, that these guys have, Maria calls it a content calendar, which is probably the proper name, but I jokingly refer to it as a scammer's liturgical calendar, because I like to reference it to a religious calendar where it's like, okay, now we're in ordinary time, so what are we going to do? Well, we got to figure something out.
Right.
How about mid-year reviews? Brilliant.
Right. You can't have any gaps on your calendar. You got to have something to do every week.
Right.
Your
your folks have to have something to do every week.
Yeah, because, Advent lines up with package delivery scams.
Right.
Yep.
Sure. And don't get me started on the
Of course it
holiday
does.
season.
Right.
Yeah, that's coming soon. So
Yeah, it's right around
fun.
the corner.
And then there's tax fraud in January and February, March, all the way up through April. Not tax fraud, tax phishing. Tax fraud's
Yeah.
what you do when you file your taxes wrong. Deliberately so.
Yeah.
Or do the LLC thing we were talking about.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
That's
right. Well,
year.
we will
Evergreen.
have a link to this story in the show notes. And again, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is hackinghumans@n2k.com. All right, Joe, Maria, it is time to move on to our catch of the day.
Dave, our catch of the day comes from Mitch. And Dave, how I frequently say there are things that might work on me.
Yes.
I've gotten something very similar to this in the past.
Really?
Yes.
And?
I knew it was a scam,
Okay.
but I was really tempted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, but it was better than this one. I mean, it was like better worded than this one. But why don't you go ahead and read the email and we'll talk about it.
All right. It goes like this. Hello, chosen ones of the light. You were chosen by the great brotherhood of the Illuminati to be a member of this family. You have found favor in the eyes of the great creator, and hence this noble invitation to be a member of the elite family. Do you want to join the great Illuminati brotherhood to become rich, famous, and protected in life? Join us today and solve your financial problems. If you want to become a member of the Illuminati, contact us now.
I was talking with a couple of people at my office, a couple of younger engineers in my office, and they were talking about how they got this. And I was like, I haven't seen one of these in years. Years it's been since I was, early on in my career. And when I got it, I was like, I know this is fake.
But I want it to be real so
really-
badly.
But if there is Illuminati and they're really inviting me in, And
Yes, I
there's
want in.
that little voice in the back of my head going, but what if it's real? No, it's not real. The big voice in the front of my head says no. I never responded.
So this is retro now. It's come back. So
Yeah,
it's a
that's right.
vintage
Comes
scam.
around.
They've brushed it off. Amazing.
I'm willing to bet that it plays on the conspiratorial nature of a lot of people. Everybody likes to believe that there's some kind of not everybody, but there are some people who can't accept the fact that they're just regular average people,
Right.
and which is something I've come to terms with.
What's that like,
It's
Joe?
hard.
It is hard. It sucks. It sucks to realize that you just
Dave, one day you will understand.
Yeah. one day-
Come on, let's be real.
But so they immediately start looking for what's going on out there. Why are people
Right.
out there? And this can lead to all kinds of terrible thinking.
Right.
And
What's holding me back?
Yeah, what's holding me back? Who's holding me back? Who? That's really when it becomes
Yeah.
an issue. Is
The big who.
Whomst.
they're trying
Yes.
to stop me? Somebody's trying to stop me.
Mhm. If only.
They.
If only.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not they. It's it's the fact that not everybody can be Taylor Swift, right? Not everybody can be.
right.
Not every
How
rock
dare you,
band's going to
sir?
be Metallica.
How dare you smash my dreams right in front of me like that?
Not every.
Really?
Who's a big football player right now?
A full 50% of people are below average, Joe.
That's
a full
right.
50%.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's exactly.
Reminds me of the Stonecutters from The Simpsons.
That's one of my favorite episodes
Yeah.
because it stars Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. Interesting. There's a, Joe, in the town where you and I live, there is a building in the downtown that is owned by the International, what is it? The International Assembly or International something of Oddfellows. Are you familiar with the Oddfellows?
I am familiar with the Oddfellows. They're a fraternal organization
What?
that was originally based around insurance.
Okay.
They were. That's how a lot of these fraternal organizations got started.
Yeah.
Was for insurance reasons that they could pool their
That does
resources
not sound
together.
real.
Well, it is.
It is.
It
It's-
is.
That's what I thought the first time I saw their sign.
I don't know where the Oddfellows building is.
It's
in-
on Main Street in Ellicott City.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was walking
Why
down.
Oddfellows? Why
well-
that name? That sounds weird.
There's a Wikipedia page, believe me, because I've read it.
They go back to like the 1700s, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, the reason they came to my attention was, I think back in the 90s, there was an Oddfellows Lodge that had human remains in it.
Oh,
And
as you do.
yeah, I think people went to jail over that one.
Gee.
But I was like, Oddfellows, who?
Not so good for recruiting.
Right.
Oh, listen, we're not going to go back in that room. Just keep moving. Keep on with the tour. It's fine.
Right, that's where the
Oh,
secret
that's just
stuff is.
John.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's a very
What?
odd fellow. Yeah, I know. It's a real legit organization and they have a storied history. And my understanding is they continue going along and they do good, but I just really like their name. I think if you're going to have some kind of a fraternal, maybe even secret society, why not call it the Oddfellows? That's a great name. So that's all. Yeah, look it up. They're real.
Yep.
All right.
I'm on the Wikipedia page now. Amazing. Okay. Yeah.
There you
Do
go.
they reference the human remains event?
It's a long entry. I'm going to be
Very
reading it for a
long
while,
article.
so it's
don't have
long.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that rabbit hole today. Yeah.
Right. There goes
Goodness.
Maria's productivity for the rest of the day.
Yep.
All right, folks, that is our catch of the day. If there's something you'd like us to consider, please do send it in. It is hackinghumans@n2k.com.
We want to thank all of you for listening, and of course, we want to thank our sponsors at KnowBe4. They are experts at enabling a fully integrated approach to security awareness training.
And that is Hacking Humans, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to hackinghumans@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode is produced by Liz Stokes. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. I'm Dave Bittner.
I'm Joe Kerrigan.
And I'm Maria Varmazes.
Thanks for listening.